check that's going. So, yeah, just to be upfront, I've said in an email, excuse me, it's suddenly got very cold here. I'm in Barrel, and it's quote feels like minus 4.4 outside.
Yep, Sydney's well, not as cold. I know Barrel pretty well. I used to live in Mossvale, but Sydney was. I was walking around in shorts this morning, and then now I'm not. It's bloody cold. Yeah.
So anyway, just the one disclaimer: I am a coach. I'm going to offer you a free coaching session at the end. Up to you whether you take it up. It won't affect in any way, shape, or form whether or not the interview will, of course, go live anyway.
Sure.
Okay. So the way I'm going to start, I'm going to clap my hands. That'll let the video editors know we're going, and at the end, I'll clap my hand again. Okay.
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Hi, it's Jonathan Herps again, founder and CEO of the Scale Up Growth Partners. Welcome to our stories of scaling up, where we'll be chatting with owners, MDs, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies. Today, I'm speaking with Andrew Bond, who's CEO at 8common. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Andrew, look, maybe we could just kick off with, tell me what 8common does and how long you've been involved.
Yeah, good stuff. So 8common, we do two things. So we're an ASX listed company. We have two kind of key paths to our business. One of those revolves around travel and expense management. So that product is called Expense 8. And that product has been around in various iterations since 1997. And effectively what it does is books, it kind of organizes travel, allows for people to book their travel, to calculate their allowances, and effectively the whole end-to-end travel process for large corporates and government, as well as expense management. So that's your credit card reconciliations, cash reimbursements, all that kind of stuff, and the two kind of combined because a lot of your expenses are typically when you travel. So the Expense 8 business currently we primarily focus on government and large corporates. So we have all of Northern Territory government using that solution. About 90 to 95% of New South Wales government uses that solution. In July last year, we won the mandate for the entire federal government contract, which we're in the process of rolling out right now. And so that's our kind of corporate footprint. Government footprint, and the corporates we have customers AMP, Woolworths. So we primarily focus on that very enterprise and government space. High levels of complexity is kind of where we like to play. And yeah, that part of the business has been established for a very long time. And then the second half of the business is called Card Hero, and that's a payments a prepaid card, so a digital card that's on your phone, as well as a physical card you can have in your wallet. And that came to being in the last couple of years, and that to start was focused on not-for-profits and particularly the disability sector. So ensuring that people with disability can spend funds and their carers can spend funds on their behalf safely, without fraud, without misuse, and with transparency and I guess less administrative burden. And that's been rolling out over the last couple of years to not-for-profits, and we're now working very heavily with government, which is obviously our core, and looking at things like domestic violence and helping people get out of domestic violence with government, as well as a few other use cases. So those two businesses make up the majority. 8common, I've been with the business since 2015. I think last week I celebrated my 7th anniversary. So yeah.
Congratulations. That's the seventh year as CEO.
No, so I actually joined as a customer success manager. So effectively sort of half sales, half account management in 2015. And I became general manager in 2017, COO 2018, CEO 2019. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
So I think you've already answered my next question, which is how would you describe your core, your core customer, your best customer? So essentially large corporates and government. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, large corporates and government is kind of our core. Wherever there's sort of complexity, so we don't like to play in the SME space. like to play in a complicated space, and that primarily involves government. Not-for-profits is another good segment for us. Again, a lot of complexity around that, and then even a lot of the sort of quasi. They're not technically government, but they might be government funded. So universities is another good example of a large complex environment that we like to play in.
Yeah, great, thank you. Excuse me. So, we've all been through the pandemic. What actions have you taken in your business that has stuck, that you're continuing now that we're most of the way through it?
Yeah, we made two very conscious decisions during the pandemic that are kind of endeavoring post pandemic, and one of those was to focus, not even focus, but like double down on our employees, and the other was to really look at what our core was and who we really were, and kind of double down on that. So doubling down on employees is something that's been very successful for us, both during the pandemic and post the pandemic. So really looking at our culture, looking at the people. When it came to thinking about needing more people, we again figured let's double down on the people we've got. Let's not just hire people in when we've got some fantastic people that have been with us for our longest serving employees been with us for 16 years. So we've got these fantastic people, and let's double down on them. Let's reward them, let's recognize them, and that's been very successful for us, and we're still doing that now. There's this great resignation that I've heard a lot about. I'm very happy that I haven't seen it personally. We've been very lucky in that sense, but I think it's the focus that we put on our employees and the culture that has meant that we haven't seen a great resignation in our business at all. So,
yep.
So that's half of it. And then, really focusing on our core and sitting down and thinking about what have we done well, where have we won previously. And one thing we came up with, when one of our not-for-profit customers and said, we have a problem with fraud, we have a problem with misuse of funds in the disability space, can you help us out? And we went along with that, and we built this Card Hero product specifically for one of our customers. And when we sort of reflected on where we've been successful, we came up with this notion that when there's a problem, we do something about it. And that's been really important for us, because it helped us choose to I guess build this product for Card Hero for the disability space, which is very rewarding. But it's also now playing out. So when we were sort of discovering the world of domestic violence and the problems there, we're working now with government to do something about that. And there's lots of aged care, youth care. There's a lot of problems out there in these spaces, and that's focusing on doing something about it has been really important for us, and it's working out well commercially, but it's also working out well in, I guess, a real world scenario where we're fixing real problems.
Congratulations on that. I used to be the chair of an advisory board for a homeless charity called Dignity, so I know I've got a fairly deep understanding of some of the issues, and it's such important work. And it's one of those things. Even going back, 25 years ago when I was a senior executive at Commonwealth Bank, one of the critical life events that we really spent a lot of time on was how do we help women who are going through a divorce? Because once they get married and give their name away, that's great, but how do they get their name back and get their accounts back and all of that? They're such important life events.
Yes.
So listen, tell me, what's the future look like, and what are the biggest challenges you've got going forward?
What does the future look like? The future and the challenges are almost intertwined. Technology is moving so quickly that it's hard for adoption is hard. Is what I'm trying to say. So, I'm talking about looking to get into the aged care space for a technology company. That's an interesting challenge, right? Because typically people don't think of sort of elderly people as being the most technically savvy, nor people with disability, to be honest, as well. They're not always the most technically savvy. So trying to the change management component of implementing new software, whether you're in government, not-for-profits, or anywhere, is challenging, and is that kind of differential is accelerating on people being able to adopt the technology, but the technology is running away very, very, very quickly. So I think those are kind of intertwined in terms of what's going to happen and what the challenge is. The challenge is humans keeping up with technology and being able to use it and embrace the power of it before it kind of races away from them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it potentially has the the possibility of what you're trying to solve, which is potentially abuse. Being, the abusers, unless you get that right, the abusers are given more control.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a challenge, and there's a lot of really good ways to tackle that. I mean, when we develop these things, we spend a lot of time developing our solution specifically for people with disability, to make sure it's accessible, to make sure that the colors don't clash, that the buttons aren't too big, too small. There's a lot of stuff you can do in that space, but I think just even wider than us, this kind of technology racing away from our ability to use it is a big challenge for the world.
Totally agree. So tell me, what do you reckon has been the biggest learning you've had since you've been a CEO?
Since I've been a CEO, geez, it would have to be people based and culture based. I mean, another thing we sort of learned or really focused on during the pandemic was our culture, and looking after the employee means the employee is going to look after the customer, and if you look after the employee first, then a lot of good things come from that. So I think I always fancied myself as being a good manager and a good people manager, but it wasn't until I sort of a CEO and I could see the impacts that I could have on culture and what that meant for our customers. But for everything, right? If you got happy employees, you got happy customers bring in more customers, and that helps our share price. It helps our revenues. Our investors are happy. So I think really focusing on the employee and making sure the employee is looked after is probably the biggest thing I've learned. Yeah,
the theme that runs through most of these interviews is that looking after your own and this concept of who, not how. Before you start thinking about how to do it, think about the who's to help you do that.
That's one of our values on our company one pager.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So tell me, when you think of the word successful, who pops to mind first, and tell me why?
Oof. I could look at a lot of ways to see a lot of successful people. I mean, there's the simple answers of all the sort of famous people like your Elon Musks and Richard Bransons and all these people, and no doubt they're successful. I see a lot of successful people in and around me, and I think it's a very relative term. One of my team, geez, in the last 45 minutes to an hour, just got his first like real meaty sales deal, and he's not a salesman. He's an operations guy, and he sort of took on the challenge of landing this big deal. And relatively, that's a huge success for this guy. And I'd answer that right now. Like this guy's super successful. I look around to see, my wife working next to me, who also does more than her fair share of heavy lifting with 3 kids. I think in her career she's been extremely successful, and she's managed to get 3 kids to stay alive and be being amazing people as well. So I see a lot of success and even inspiration in just the day-to-day people that I interact with. Yeah, sorry if you're looking for like that. If you're looking for the Mike Cannon Brooks answer or something like that.
No, it's interesting. It's that is probably my favorite question of all of them. And the responses I've got have been that's the one I love, the responses. A lot of the other stuff can be a little bit predictable, I suppose. People who, not how, perseverance, etc. But the successful people, I've had Tom Cruise. Why him? But to explain the 42-year career, multiple franchises, probably employed tens of thousands of people. We've had a grandfather, we've had a father, we've had a brother, we've had a wife. A lot of it has been about contentment, which is really interesting. So one of the things I want to do is pull out some of the stories on around that, probably all of the questions, but certainly the successful one, and build that into a separate, a summary, because they've had some fabulous answers. So thank you.
Good stuff.
And you should get that ops guy who's a salesman to actually listen to this. I'm sure he'd be very, very chuffed to hear that you're going wide on him.
I hope so. I hope he listens to
it. So tell me, are you a reader? Any business books, blogs, leadership biographies you'd recommend?
Well, you mentioned you had a theory that all good leaders are readers, and I'm not the best reader. I do, if I can adjust I do have some books. I know they're on there. Yep. I have 4 books sitting there. I've read 1.5 of them right now.
Right.
The one, I mean, this is not a coincidence, but my number 1 book that everyone should read is Scaling Up by Vern.
Yep.
Couldn't live without that. That's everything in our business is centered around stuff that he's put in his book. So we drink that Kool-Aid. Outside of that, I am sort of halfway through some Simon Sinek books, which are quite interesting. But I'm probably now more into podcasts.
Yep.
Whenever I drive to Canberra a lot for work. I'm driving tomorrow, and I'll put a podcast on. So my favorite podcast right now is The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett.
Mm-hmm.
That one's pretty incredible. Some of the people he talks to blow my mind. Have me feeling all sorts of emotions while driving. Hearing their stories, and some amazing people, not just CEOs, but sports people and movie stars, and you name it, they're all on there. All these successful people. So that's probably my favorite at the moment.
I haven't heard of that one, so I'll look that up when we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, British guy. He's only young. Wouldn't be 35, I wouldn't think, but he founded, grew, and sold like a huge advertising firm in the UK, and made a truck ton of money, and now has many more businesses and a podcast, and he makes a few million off that on its own. So
I wish.
Yeah.
That's not the end of it. It's interesting you talk about Vern. I know Vern well, and when I went on the coaching journey, I've been using Scaling Up in both my business and personal life for many years. And so my first port of call in coaching was to become certified as a Scaling Up coach. And I'll just deal with me if I can lose my virtual background just for a moment. So it's a mess, but if you look over there, there, my two most the books I give away the most. One is Scaling Up, because it's a great starting point. There are some limitations on it, and the other one is a book called Legacy by James Kirk. And Legacy, James is a leadership coach out of the UK. He's a Kiwi, and he spent a year embedded with the All Blacks, and he's one who committed the values of the All Blacks. Clean out the shed. Always leave the jersey better than it was, and they're my two they're the 2 books I give away the most.
Okay, interesting. I've got a feeling that's on my list of books that I want to buy and read. Just trying to quickly find my list, but I think I'm pretty confident that Legacy is on my list of things to look out for. Yeah.
It's a really good book, and even if you just go to the summary of the values, it's really nails down why they've been probably one of the most successful businesses in the history of time. Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's the last question. Any last piece of advice or parting words for CEOs or aspiring CEOs out there?
I would say a few things. I think as a CEO, it's probably two things. One is stay true to yourself and be yourself. No matter you will have probably 90% of the people that you deal with day to day, you probably think you're wrong, or will tell you why you're wrong, or will doubt you, or tell you better ways to do things. So trying to balance the criticism and the feedback with staying true to who you are, I think is very important and a very difficult thing to do. I think we've all, most CEOs have been led down paths that kind of weren't true to who they were, and regretted it and had to come back. And I think personally, I found most of my success personally and for the company has been when I've stuck to my guns and known who I was and known what the company was, and not let not let other people tell me what they think the company is or should be. So yeah, trying to balance that out is difficult, and understanding the difference between feedback and opinions is super important, because everyone you speak to will have an opinion. My mates who barely know what I do have an opinion on the company. The investors, my dear mother has an opinion on the company. But you got to kind of filter through what the opinions are and the feedback. So that's one, and then the other I would say, not because you're a scaling up coach and I'm on your video, but finding people who can help you, whether it's a coach, whatever it is. I think coaching is a good term, but having a business coach is a fantastic thing. Having personal coaches, whether they're in the form of therapists or whatever it is, but someone who can help you work on yourself, someone who can help you work on your business, I think is phenomenal, right? Every famous sports star has a coach. Why wouldn't every CEO have one as well, right? You want to perform at your peak, so get coaches for different aspects of your life.
I think that last bit's a really good piece of advice. And coaches can be anything from, sorry if I can get, your phone.
Yep.
I have in there on my phone, I've got lots of apps as everybody else does. But I've got a health app that tells me how much sleep I'm getting and am I getting enough sleep. So I can push that. How many steps, as an example. Mm-hmm. I have my own coach, who's a guy called Dan Sullivan out of the US, and as a coach, I'm always looking for mentors. I paid, God help me, $10,000 US a year for Dan. And at the top level, Steve Jobs and Eric Schmidt. So Steve Jobs, boss of Apple, Eric Schmidt, boss of Google, both had the same coach. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. And you need coaches for different parts of your life, personal trainers and the like.
100%. That's a good example as well. Personal trainer. It's exactly the same thing. It's an aspect of your life, and it's a very important part. And exactly right. That's a common one. I think business, get one for business, get one for your mental health, get one for everything.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Andrew, thank you so much. There's been some great insights in that.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
No, and it is fun. I'm having a ball doing these and learning an enormous amount. So thank you again.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That was so. I'm lifting. I had my questions above here. I found in the early. I haven't done this before. I found in